Is technology always good for Torah? Or can it sometimes be dangerous? Hi everybody, David Paskin here, your Torah tech guy, and I'm here to share with you some great tech for your great Torah. So here's what I'd like to do today. I'd like to talk today, hi Mom, I'd like to talk today a little bit about if technology can be dangerous to Torah. And let me tell you where this is coming from. This is actually coming from something that many of you have probably seen, and that is Miriam Manzovin. I hope I'm pronouncing her name, Anzovin, excuse me. Miriam Manzovin's TikTok page. So she has been posting these daf reactions, and they are a little, how do we say, well, non-traditional, I guess would be one way to say it. They are pushing the envelope for sure. And her posts have gotten a flurry of rabbis and thought leaders reflecting on the type of work that she's doing. What I'd like to do is take a broader approach. I'd like to look a little more broadly at this type of work that we're all doing now, of bringing Torah into the lives of our congregants, of our students, through the use of technology, whether that simply be streaming or whether that is through something like TikTok Torah or Instagram or Pinterest or however you're reaching your constituents. I want to talk about what happens if we perceive technology to be dangerous to Torah. And let me give you a couple of examples. So many of our synagogues have chosen to install cameras or microphones or even TV screens in their sanctuaries. Many people view all of that technology coming into their sacred space as maybe not appropriate, distracting, maybe even dangerous to the sanctity of that space, the sanctity of the experience that we're trying to share there, whether it's on Shabbat or during the week or wherever. You could also make the argument that sharing Torah over some of these social media platforms like TikTok, like Twitter, is by definition diminishing the Torah, because you only have a limited amount of time. You can't really get into the depths of whatever beautiful teaching that you're trying to get across. And so it's limiting, and therefore it's potentially dangerous. So what I want to do is share a story with you. It's a story of the Baal Shem Tov. I did not find this on my own. I want to give credit where credit is due. Rabbi Daniel Friedman wrote in the Jewish Press an article on February 27th. And he cites this story, and it's really very beautiful. So I want to share it with you, and then we can sort of see if it helps us understand some of what we're struggling with around digital teaching of Torah. So Rabbi Dov Ber, the Maggid of Mezrich, is generally considered to be Baal Shem Tov's successor. And his approach differed immensely to that of his teachers. He gathered an elite cadre of disciples, but instead of keeping the focus inward-looking, he sent his disciples far and wide to spread the message of Hasidism, of Hasidut. His students became the leaders of the Hasidic movement across Eastern Europe, and thus they began the tradition of local-based Hasidic dynasties. Now, not all of the Baal Shem Tov's disciples were pleased with this colleague's style, and one particular critic was Rabbi Pinchas of Koretz, and he insisted that the Maggid's approach was actually diminishing the honor of Torah. Well, one day, the Maggid and Rabbi Pinchas were taking a stroll through the streets of Mezrich, accompanied by one of the Maggid's disciples, Rabbi Shneur Zalman Berdovich of Liozna. And suddenly, their esoteric conversation of the deep secrets of the Torah came to an abrupt halt, because there in the gutter lay a piece of paper with Hebrew letters. Rabbi Pinchas bent down, he picked it up, and sure enough, it was a page of Hasidic thought. Rabbi Pinchas held it up for all to see, and he says, this is what I'm talking about, my dear friends. When Chassidus is a free-for-all, for us, I would say maybe Torah. When Torah is a free-for-all, it ends up in the gutter. It's time we put a stop to this hefkerus, to this chaos, this disorder. The esoteric realm of Torah has to be reserved only for those who are worthy of receiving it, as the name Kabbalah, which means to receive, implies. Rabbi Shneur Zalman turned to his teacher, the Maggid, and he asked if he could respond. And with the acknowledgement of the Maggid's nod, Rabbi Shneur Zalman told this story. A king had an only son, whom he loved more than anything in the world. One day the prince took ill. They summoned all the finest physicians from near and far, but nobody could cure the young man. Finally, one doctor approached the king with a suggestion. I have heard of a cure for this illness, but it is hard to come by and far from guaranteed to work. Now, there is a certain gemstone, which when combined with herbs and aged wine is said to treat this malady. Well, then we have to try it, the king said. And they searched all over the kingdom. But the only gemstone to be found was embedded in the king's crown. Well, we're sorry, Your Majesty, his advisor sighed. We have not found the gemstone. It's simply not worth risking the crown jewel on this experiment. We don't even know if it will work. It probably won't. And then you'll have no son and you'll have no crown. The king said, I command you, unflinchingly, he said, grind up the crown jewel immediately and prepare the medicine for my son. Well, as they prepared the mixture, you could hear a pin drop in the room. Would it work? By this stage, the prince was so weak that it would be a miracle if they could even get a few drops into his mouth. With one hand, the doctor held open the young man's mouth. With the other, he slowly poured the medicine in. Most of it ended up on the prince's clothes, his bed, even on the floor. But it was clear that a tiny amount had made its way into his mouth. And lo and behold, the prince spluttered and began to open his eyes. My dear teachers, Rabbi Shneur Zalman concluded, right now, Hashem's, God's beloved child, the Jewish people, is languishing in pain, barely showing signs of life. They are so far removed from spirituality that they are only hanging on by the grace of heaven. It's time to reveal the secrets of Torah to them. Now, will it save our people? Nothing is guaranteed. Are we running a huge risk? Yes. Might the spreading of the well springs of Torah lead to some ending up all over the floor? Perhaps. But it's our only hope. And the king would want his crown jewel to be sacrificed to save the life of his child. The next day, the Maggid called Rabbi Shneur Zalman into his study. Thank you for saving my life. Last night, I was taken before the heavenly court, and it was revealed to me that a decree had been invoked against my methods. The court had passed judgment against me, but then an angel appeared and retold your parable, and I was vindicated. In the era of the Maggid, in that era, it was one of great spiritual peril. And we can only imagine how our forebears would view our generation. We lose brothers and sisters to assimilation, to apathy. As Rev Shneur Zalman explains, desperate times call for desperate measures. Thank God we've been blessed with these tools, this technology to disseminate Torah. The internet combined with modern, understandable translations have made Torah more accessible than ever. Now, we could choose, like early Hasidim chose, to say the Talmud, the Torah, it's special way to protect it. But now it is truly a Morashat Kehilat Yaakov. It's a heritage for the entire congregation of Jacob. And for the first time in Jewish history, Jews of all backgrounds have access to your Torah. And that's a blessing. But it is perhaps also very dangerous. Could sharing Torah, like on TikTok or Twitter or anywhere else, could it lead to some of that ending up in the gutter or on the floor? Could it be misinterpreted or mistreated? Yes. But Rabbi Shneur Zalman teaches that we don't really have a choice. It's a risk that we have to take. And if I could editorialize on Rabbi Shneur Zalman's teaching, I would go so far as to say, it isn't even really a risk that we have to take. It's a risk that we should be willing to take. Because using these technologies allow us to reach people not only in diverse places, not only people that we might not otherwise reach, but it allows us to reach them where they are. No longer do people have to come into a synagogue to learn Torah. We want them to. Don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing against going to shul. We want them to come in, but they don't have to. Until now, or before these days, if you wanted to really study Talmud, you had to go buy an entire shas, an entire collection of Talmud. It cost hundreds of dollars. Now it's all available to us. It's all available to us with amazing teachers like you who are out there sharing this Torah. So could it potentially be dangerous? Could technology potentially be risky? Can it be unsettling to see a screen in our sanctuary? Yeah, absolutely. Will it allow more people to connect in more ways, perhaps even more personal ways than ever before? I think it will. What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love, love, love to hear what you have to say about this. There are some really wonderful editorials and articles out there. I want to encourage you to go out to read about them. You can check out Miriam's TikTok. If you're on TikTok, it's tiktok.com/ at Miriam and Zovin. They're really pretty cool, if you ask me. Hey, while you're perusing over on the web, I want to invite you to come on over and visit my website, TorahTechGuy.com, where I have lots of fantastic resources, links, apps, all the stuff that I use and all the different ways that I can help you have the best technology for your amazing Torah. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I will be around tomorrow. Tomorrow we've got, I don't have a little pop-up for that, but tomorrow we've got our how-to hangout. Between 1 and 2 o'clock Eastern time, I will be in my Zoom room. Just head on over to TorahTechGuy.com/hangout. That's TorahTechGuy. Let me pull it up. I'll show you. .com/hangout. And you'll be able to just enter the Zoom right from there. Just click on that button and you'll be able to enter the Zoom. If you have questions, bring your questions, bring your concerns. We can troubleshoot. If you're working on something specific we can work on together, I'd be happy to see you there. Would love to do that. So until next time, my friends, have a fantastic week. Sending love, prayers to our friends, our brothers, our sisters in Ukraine. My mom is watching and she's commenting. I'm a senior. Technology keeps me in touch with my rabbi, who's a great distance away. Yeah. Hey, Mom. All right, everyone. I hope I'll see you next time on Torah Tech Tips. Bye.